Manchester bomber's father and brother arrested, linked to terror networks worldwide.
There were raids also overnight and this morning. 8 now are under arrest.
The alleged bomber spent 3 weeks in Libya before returning to England just days before the attack.
But you have this divided allegiance. You live in a country, but you are not of it. You don't commit to it the way you would, and you're more easily seduced by radical ideas.
There are people in this world that just want to kill you for who you are and what you stand for, and that is our Western way of life and freedom. And we, as the United States of America, have a duty and obligation to stamp it out.
President Trump continues his marathon European journey with a stop in...
President Trump has been pushing NATO to become more relevant by taking on a greater counterterrorism mission. Monday's bombing in Manchester has thrust that mission to the top of the agenda.
What took place is horrible, unthinkable, but we will win 100%.
That's the story. That's what, it's a new Middle East right now. America is back.
Fleet Week begins today here in New York when thousands of Navy officers take leave in the city and where dozens of women will find out they were lied to by the ice cream man.
He wanted to be a golf pro as a child. He could check that off his list. He wanted to fly fighter jets. Check that off your list. He's also started this great organization. It's amazing. You're going to be a part of that this weekend, Folds of Honor, giving scholarship money to kids who have lost a parent fighting for our country.
And if he wanted to be in the Bone Frog Challenge, you can check that off your after this hour. So anyway, thank you very much for joining us. We've got a very busy Thursday morning.
That's right. Let's get straight to this Fox News alert. The Manchester bombers' father and brother arrested, linked to terror networks worldwide.
Wow, but the hunt is not over. Authorities conducting massive overnight raids. 8 people now under arrest. Expect that list to grow. And we're learning chilling details about where the killer bought supplies before the massacre. Greg Palcott is live in Manchester with brand new significant evidence authorities have just collected. Greg.
Absolutely. Hi, folks. We are in the center of Manchester where the flowers continue to build here at this memorial to the victims of the attack. And yes, as the police go after who is behind the attack, not just the bomber, but others supporting him. Overnight arrests, this morning raids, 8 now held in custody. And the police, just in the past hour or so, have confirmed that these are significant arrests, and evidence gathered in these raids are important. They do feel there was a network behind them. We do have new images of the bomber Salam Abedi just a couple of days before the attack, just a couple of blocks from where he committed the attack, at a shopping mall, buying that backpack, which he would then have filled with explosives and shrapnel, which would do all the damage. And yes, in the past 18 hours, detained in Libya, where they are right now, his father and his brother. His brother said to have admitted to ties with ISIS and also to knowing about the attack. The father said to have past associations with groups associated with al-Qaeda. The bomber himself had been in Libya a short time before the attack. This, as the whole country remains on a high alert and the highest security threat level. That means that they feel that the bomb maker, the guy that supplied the bomb-making material, is still out there and could be planting some stuff on somebody new to create an attack. That's why we're seeing troops, and sometimes in place of police. And yes, incredibly, I've covered a lot of these attacks, but never have I seen the casualty rate grow instead of fall. 75 in hospital. 14 of those are kids. Visited today, believe it or not, by 91-year-old Queen Elizabeth, a mother, a grandmother, a great-grandmother, remembering these kids hurt in this terrible attack. Back to you guys.
All right, Greg Palcott in front of a sea of flowers there in the heart of Manchester. You know what's interesting is we've been able to see some of these unbelievable photographs of the crime scene and of the bomber, and the way we were able to get that is somebody inside the U.S. government leaked them to the New York Times, and the British government is really steamed, and in fact, the police have stopped sharing information with the United States on the investigation. They are furious, apparently the United Kingdom is, about the leaks, and John Roberts, who is traveling with the president, just put out a statement that Theresa May has made clear. I will make clear to President Trump, later today when she sees him, that intelligence that is shared between our law enforcement agencies must remain secure.
Right, but you cannot blame President Trump or his administration on this. The BBC reported the same thing.
They got a leak problem with this administration.
And by the way, they better not lock us out, because we'll do the best hunting possible for these people and establish the links inside ISIS. Sky is reporting that this guy and this guy's family lived in the same complex as a huge nest of radicalized UK citizens who decided, I'm going to go fight for ISIS. They get into Raqqa and the surrounding area. They're finding this paperwork, and it tracks right back to the little estate area in which he grew up.
Well, and also there were individuals that notified the hotline and said there's some red flags surrounding this guy. Then a few days after this attack on Monday, 8 people arrested. I feel like all they had to do was kind of look into his life a little bit, and maybe they would have seen something.
And maybe they're overwhelmed at MI5, and they're saying there's so many people who fit this profile. Maybe they're part of the 3,500 who are suspected terrorists.
Sure.
But we don't know where to start.
Look at the guy. Look what he looked like. I mean, he looked like Darth Vader. He's dressed in all of black. People were saying, how are you going to point him out in a crowd? It's pretty easy. Look at him.
Well, what's discouraging is...
Well, not in that
Not
shot.
in that picture. The one when he's wearing the backpack and the hoodie and all that right here. I mean, if he walked into a concert venue like that, with a bunch of little girls around, that looks pretty scary to me.
Well, I tell you what, the security services, according to the Telegraph, over one of the tabloids over in London, they say that security services missed 5 chances to stop the bomber. And Brian, to your point about how MI5 maybe, you know, they're really busy because they're tracking the 3,500 people. This guy just got back from Libya a week ago. He was suspected of having some sort of ties, although he wasn't a high risk. But still, maybe they ought to keep an eye on guys who just got back from Libya a week ago.
So everybody's together, you know, in the NATO meetings. There's 26 world leaders there, one of which is our president. And here's his tone yesterday.
When you see something like happened 2 days ago, you realize how important it is to win this fight. And we will win this fight. It's a horrible situation. What took place is horrible, unthinkable, but we will win 100%.
Got to be more aggressive than we're doing right now. In France, they're not stopping anything. In Brussels, they're not stopping anything. In Germany, they're really slow to realize they have a problem in their midst. And now in the UK, 2 hits in the last 6 weeks.
Well, in terrorism, fighting terrorism was already on the agenda, but this brings just a new urgency, what happened on Monday. We have the president over there, and then this happens in the UK, and everyone stops and listens when you talk about terrorism now.
And let's face it, President Donald Trump is blunt. A couple of days ago, he said, I'm not going to call them monsters after this because they like that. They want to be regarded as monsters. I'm going to call them losers, evil losers. And then you've got him yesterday in Brussels where he talks about how we are going to beat this 100%. And that's exactly the message that people want to hear. Although we've been seeing some on the political left in the show business world who have a different message.
So many times when you want to know what you should think and how you should think, I think to myself, what would celebrities do?
What would Katy Perry do?
Right. I mean, for example, that's really what I think. And sure enough, she was able to promote her album and got a serious question. She was able to handle that. I also know that U2, Bono was on the couch with Jimmy Kimmel. I loved what he said. He basically says his heart goes out to people of Manchester, but we got to understand this threat. And he sounded like he was reading Donald Trump's teleprompter.
Well, that's good, but then you've got people like Katy Perry and Justin Timberlake who have tweeted out what we need right now is unity and love. And we had Sean Parnell, a retired Army Ranger, with us.
Oh, there it is. Steve, why don't you tell us what he means?
Thank you very much. He said, my thoughts and prayers are with all those affected by this horrific act in Manchester. We need to do better. We need to love one another. And certainly that's what you need to do to the victims' families. But Sean Parnell said that's not how you get rid of terror.
It's really easy to say coexist and advocate for open borders when you live in a gated compound surrounded by armed guards and security every day. They basically live in a bulletproof bubble. There are people in this world that just want to kill you for who you are and what you stand for, and that is our Western way of life, our Western values, and freedom. That evil cannot coexist with the good, peace-loving people of the world, and we, as the United States of America, have a duty and obligation to stamp it out.
Yeah, try loving and hugging on ISIS.
I will say
See how that goes.
the families impacted, they need love.
The families, of course, yeah. And what a wonderful message to be able to say we want to love everybody. Of course, who doesn't want to do that? But I don't think just hugging ISIS is going to do the trick.
7 parents lost their lives picking up their kids. I just happened to be sitting in the lobby. Gene on Facebook writes, well, as far as I'm concerned, the terrorists are evil losers, and I, for one, love to hear my president telling it like it is.
Kim on Facebook says, it wouldn't have mattered what my president said or how he said it. They would have found something wrong with it.
Carol's also on Facebook. I love that our president is down to earth enough to not sugarcoat things. Carol, you're right about that. He does not sugarcoat much.
And sadly, Sean Parnell on the battlefield is not fighting the war these days. It is our law enforcement, our police officers out there in our cities and our streets. They're actually they're the tip of the spear these days.
That's what's scary.
And the investigators and detectives, and they've been under fire domestically.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, coming up at the conclusion of this hour, we're going to go out. We've got the mud run, and Jillian, who is new to the Fox and Friends family, is actually going to be changing clothes, I believe, to take part.
Well, let's hope so.
Right.
Is this part of my initiation or something?
Yeah, we've all done it multiple times. It's Jillian's turn.
I know.
And you got the athletic background, so this should be no problem.
Let's see how that's going to help me.
And I have a lot of Bassett Tracing should you cut.
It's going to be great.
Yes, absolutely. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, 10 minutes past the hour right now, and hours before polls open in the Montana special election, a GOP congressional candidate is charged with assault. Greg Gianforte defending himself after he's accused of body slamming a Guardian reporter. The candidate says that reporter tried to push a phone in his face before this happened.
Not going to be time. I'm just curious if you have the
speak
right
with
now.
Shane, please.
But you don't.
Sick and tired of you guys. The last time that came in here, you did the same thing.
Ooh, reporter Ben Jacobs tweeting that his glasses broke when he was body slammed and that he never touched the candidate before he was thrown to the ground. Gianforte's campaign says the men both fell. 1/3 of voters have likely cast their ballots early for the neck-and-neck race. The special election will fill Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke's open house seat. Did fake Russian intelligence affect James Comey's investigation into Hillary Clinton? According to the Washington Post, the FBI got its hands on a document claiming former Attorney General Loretta Lynch assured the Clinton campaign she wouldn't let the investigation into her private email server get too far. In July, Comey announced the Clinton investigation was over, and by August, the FBI concluded the document was fake, possibly meant to confuse the Bureau. Now, President Trump is widening his search to replace Comey at the FBI. Former Senator Joe Lieberman is no longer in the running. A victory in the fight to fix the broken system at the Department of Veterans Affairs. The VA accountability bill is one step closer to becoming law after overcoming a major hurdle in the Senate, passing a committee vote. It now moves to the Senate floor. The bill would make it much easier for VA Secretary David Shulkin to fire bad employees. And First Lady Melania Trump visiting a children's hospital in Brussels this morning. Brand new video just coming in showing her sitting and making crafts with patients. This is her second visit to a children's hospital in the past 24 hours. Yesterday, she visited a hospital in Rome. Take a look at this picture, where just hours after she read to a boy, he found out he's receiving a heart transplant, which is amazing. Let's look at your headlines on this Thursday morning, guys.
That is beautiful.
Yes.
She speaks 5 languages, and she was there with the kids and speaking Italian to them.
It's
Very good.
wonderful.
All right, we'll see you in the mud run.
Sounds good.
All right, 17 minutes to the top of the hour.
Linked to terror networks worldwide.
But the hunt is still on. It's not close to over. Authorities conducted massive overnight raids, still taking place. You got 8 people under arrest, but they're really focusing on the entire family of the bomber. Here to weigh in is former European Parliament member Daniel Hannan. And Daniel, I know you're all over this Manchester story. So far, we find out that this terrorist was hiding in plain sight, so to speak.
And apparently had been notified to the authorities by other local Muslims who thought that they were worried about signs of radicalization. I'll tell you what this does, what the news tells us, is that it's the final nail in the coffin that terrorism is somehow our fault, that it's somehow provoked by Western foreign policy. You think about this, Abedi's family were persecuted by Gaddafi because they were religious. They were given sanctuary in the West. We then invested a huge amount of blood and treasure in removing the regime that had been persecuting them in Libya, and yet it ends with him blowing up a foyer full of teenage and preteen girls. So whatever else this is not in any sense blowback or our fault. We're dealing with something altogether more evil than that.
And of course, the world is dealing with an altogether new president in the United States. Donald Trump, a couple of days ago, said, I'm not going to call them monsters, I'm going to call them evil losers, because that's what they are. And he also, we just played a soundbite a moment ago, I know you heard it, where the president said, we're going to get these people, we're going to stop it 100%. There's quite a sea change in the way the United States leadership is now prosecuting the war on terror, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think a very welcome one. I think that change of language is also welcome. A monster is a thing of fear. A monster is something that the rest of us cower in front of. And we absolutely should not treat these people at their own valuation.
Right.
You know, they see themselves as illicit soldiers in some dangerous worldwide cause. We should not treat them that way. We should treat them as exactly what they are, losers. First of all, often in the most basic sense that, you know, these are people with unhappy, troubled lives, with histories of violence and antisocial behavior, no luck with girls, etc. They're looking for some kind of validation, some kind of cause that will give them esteem. But they're also losing, by the way, in the sense that they are being defeated. Al-Qaeda has been crushed in Afghanistan. Islamic State is giving up ground every day. So they are exactly what you said. They are evil losers. And I think we should scorn them rather than fearing them.
20 seconds. Theresa May mad at the U.S. because they say that we made their intelligence public. Your reaction to them not sharing intelligence with us now?
Yeah, so for your viewers, when a British Home Secretary says irritating, that is, you know, we're a reserved people, and that is as close as we get to purple choking fury. It is regrettable. The intelligence sharing between your country and mine and our friends in Canada, Australia and New Zealand is the basis of Western security. It's the closest relationship in the world. Truly. And it has thwarted God knows how many
times outside his home. He was known for writing pieces calling out the Kremlin-backed United Russia Party. Investigators are looking at his work as a possible motive, you think? And China says it warned a U.S. Navy destroyer on near which was located right near a man-made island that they made in the South China Sea. The U.S. carrying out a freedom of navigation patrol. We'll see where that goes. Ainsley.
All right, thanks, Brian. As we learn more about the terrorists who carried out that horrific attack in Manchester, his parents, Libyan refugees with links to ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and some are asking the same questions that candidate Trump did back in 2016.
Go to Brussels, go to Paris, go to different places. There's something going on, and it's not good, where they want Sharia law, where they want this, where they want things that, you know, there has to be some assimilation. There is no assimilation.
So why are refugees having such a hard time assimilating to their new cultures? And does this make the world vulnerable? Joining us now to discuss this is Asra Nomani. Thank you so much, Asra, for being here and for talking about this. First of all, before we get into assimilation and not assimilation, what is your story? Tell the folks at home what you've been through.
Yeah, my story is a story of assimilation. I came to this country, the United States, at the age of 4 in the summer of 1969. My mother had grown up wearing the face veil, so we came from a very conservative interpretation of Islam. I knew no English. We lived in converted World War II barracks on the campus of Rutgers University, turned on the lights and had to wait for the cockroaches to run away to their hiding places. So we had, you know, economic hardship. We had the issues of language. But ultimately, what saved our family, what saved me, and allows me to sit here before you advocating for both American values and for an Islam that can be compatible with American values, is that my parents practiced an ideology and interpretation of Islam that respected the other, that believed that Islam could be compatible with the ways of the West. For example, me shaking hands with a man, me traveling to New York City for my first internship. It was my father who drove me on Interstate 68 to drop me off in Manhattan for my summer internship when I was 18. They abandoned their conservative ideas and accepted the Western ways because they knew that it could be a path for advancement. And that is what my life's work is now. I wrote a first book called Standing Alone in Mecca about advocating for an interpretation of Islam that allows for that integration. And I'm really excited about my next project because it's called Make Islam Great Again, borrowing from a little phrase that's become popular now, because I believe that we can make Muslims great, and by practicing an interpretation of Islam that appreciates women and girls and allows for integration and appreciation of the West, not this hate that is unfortunately put forward by ideologies that people like Salman Abedi use then to kill and massacre innocents in a concert in Manchester.
Oh, I know. So your parents, I mean, it seems like you did it right, and using their interpretation of Islam. How do you talk to those who didn't interpret or aren't interpreting Islam the way that your parents have and the way that you have?
Well, the central thesis of this idea of make Islam great again is that there was once a time when Islam actually promoted critical thinking and real rational thought. And my argument is that we have to return to that ethos. You know, I brought with me to the studio 2 books. I picked them up in Northern Virginia at a bookstore called Halal Co. Halal means legal. So it's like a company that teaches you how to be legal as a Muslim. What do they teach? One of them teaches don't go down the path of the kuffar, which is the non-believer, right, which is the people around us in America, in the UK, in France. And the other one teaches you separation, be separate. And so what we have to do is say, this is unacceptable. This is a losing ideology. And the positive ideology is one in which we value the other, we honor the other, we live in peaceful coexistence, not as a buzzword, but as a way of life. What was Ariana Grande's tour called? Do you know what it was called?
I don't.
It was called the Dangerous Woman Tour. So this bomber thought that those innocent young girls that went to that concert were dangerous to his ideology. And that is what we have to challenge in our Muslim community and say, no, the people around us are human beings. They are valuable, each one of them. And we have to honor the other. And when we do that, we honor Islam.
Absolutely. Asra Nomani, thank you so much for that perspective.
Oh, thank you for having me on. I really wish peace for everyone.
So do we all, or most of us at least. Thank you. President Trump just...
Comic book villain bad budget.
Senior citizens will lose perhaps the one nutritious meal a day they get.
It is not an overstatement to say that some children will die because of this.
This administration and Republicans in Congress are mounting an onslaught against the needs of children and people with disabilities, women and seniors.
I've never seen anything as hateful and abominable as this.
Okay, a little rhetoric up on Capitol Hill. The Office of Management and Budget Director Mick Mulvaney joins us right now from our nation's capital. Mr. Mulvaney, is it true children will die, as the mayor of New York says, and seniors will starve?
Yeah, good morning, y'all. I wish I could take that clip of de Blasio, just show it to politicians as an example of why people don't take it seriously. That is demagoguery at the very highest level. It undermines the credibility of both the politicians and the institutions, and it's just a real disappointment. By the way, to the point, I think it was Bernie Sanders, I couldn't see it, who said that we're going to take the one nutritious meal away from seniors. We don't cut meals on wheels. So it's so frustrating, but I'm glad to have a chance to sit here and talk about how we do one thing which is very important, which is we are defending the taxpayer. This is a taxpayer-first budget, and that's how we approached it.
It's almost like they wrote those talking points before they even read the budget. I don't even know if they've had time to read the budget. They probably wrote those last week without even seeing it. We had the former CEO of Godfather's Pizza, Herman Cain, on, and he was saying these are not just scare tactics. These are just plain out lies.
They are, and I got asked one time this week about somebody's comment, and I said, look, that person's been in Congress for probably 24 years. They wrote that 24 years about Republicans, and every time a Republican president rolls out a budget, they make the same statement. It's just, it has gotten a little worse this year. I think one newspaper in New York accused us of wanting to kill over 1 million people, which is just outrageous. We take care of the truly needy. We make sure that folks who need help get it. Well, they told me that I should try and make news this morning, so let me see if I can make news. Okay. Republicans care about about poor people. Republicans care about kids. Republicans care about the elderly, just like many Democrats care about national defense. And this rhetoric, this demagoguery just doesn't help the debate at all.
So you looked at this budget, or the president looked at this budget and says, listen, we cannot continue to spend this much because we're about $500 billion every year over budget. And we're worried about the long-term deficit because all of our revenues go into interest payments, which is only going to grow. So from that point, it's all going to be tightening your belt all around the country. So you're not increasing food stamp programs. You're not increasing spending on Social Security and Medicaid, although you're not touching it. So should we change the mindset?
Actually, we increase spending on Medicaid. We increase spending on a bunch of different things. We just don't increase it as fast as Congress wants to.
Wait a minute. So you do care about the elderly? You do care about the poor? You do care about kids?
Remember, in Washington, D.C., if you spent $100 on something last year and you spent $104 on it this year, they call that a cut, which is just outrageous.
Let's talk about the CBO and the health care program that came out of the House. We rated yesterday. You're going to save money, but you're also going to cover less. What was the biggest surprise about the CBO?
I think that the CBO predicted it would be warm and sunny here today in Washington, D.C. So that's about it's not. If you can see behind me, it's pouring rain here. They've been wrong on so many things. They said that I think 24 million people would be covered on Obamacare by this year. They missed that by 12 or 13 million people. They said that Obamacare would be making money for the government by now. They missed that by several tens of billions of dollars. Look,
23 million will lose insurance. True or false?
Yeah, false. I mean, it's just if you look at the methodology, they assume that folks who are on Medicaid, which is free, will choose to get off Medicaid when the mandate goes away. Now, you tell me if that sounds like the real world.
Sure. Well, one of the other things is if there's not, and I know the CBO looked at it, millions of Americans are not going to buy insurance if they don't have to, because they don't want to.
Well, and under the current system, which is what always gets lost in this, we sort of compare the new bill in the House or whatever comes out of the Senate to this ideal of what people want Obamacare to be. Let's look at what Obamacare really is, which is, I think the data came out yesterday. The average increase across the whole country was over 100% increase in premiums. Many states had more than a 200% increase since the inception of Obamacare. That's what we should be comparing it against, not this ideal of what some folks at the CBO or in the Democrat Party want Obamacare to be.
What about people who say Republicans are sabotaging Obamacare?
Obamacare is doing a great job of sabotaging itself. We told you, I've been on this show for years, you've been talking about it for years. We knew Obamacare wouldn't work. There were many of us who thought it was designed not to work, to try and push us towards a single-payer system. And all that's happening is, a friend of mine once said that the biggest lie in politics is when people say they hate to tell you so, they told you so, but we told you so. This is exactly what Obamacare was going to do.
And look at Kansas City, Blue Cross Blue Shield there. They had to pull out yesterday because they've lost $100 million. They cannot sustain it. All right, Mick Mulvaney, thank you very much for joining us from a warm and sunny Washington, D.C.
Thanks, y'all.
He's got to run of the place. Everybody's over in Europe.
No, I think Reince Priebus is there.
Oh, so. That's it.
Couple.
Okay.
All right, let's hand it to Jillian, who has some headlines for us. Good morning.
Good Thursday morning to you guys, to you at home as well. A bombshell report revealing the Obama administration allowed illegal and violent MS-13 gang members into the U.S. Senator Ron Johnson says Customs and Border Protection documents show 16 teenagers caught crossing the border in 2014 admitted to be a part of the deadly gang. But that didn't stop the feds from placing them in community homes across the country. Immigrant children poured into the U.S. and received benefits under President Obama. The new report comes as we learn the brutal MS-13 gang is turning Long Island, New York, into a homicide hotbed. In just the past 16 months, the violent members have been linked to 38% of murders in Suffolk County. The police chief says 400 gang members are terrorizing their county. The average age of those arrested, 18. The most common crime, assault with its signature weapon, a machete. Very frightening. Well, the little girl who was dragged off a dock by a sea lion is now being treated for a rare disease, a possible rare bacterial infection.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
The little girl suffering a superficial wound. Marine experts have warned she could be at risk for a sickness called seal finger that could lead to the loss of a finger or limb. The group on the dock was feeding the animal moments before the attack. They deny these claims and are considering taking legal action. Let's look at your headlines as we get close to the top of the hour. You guys know what that means. I'm going to go change.
Yeah, that's right. Get ready.
The mud run obstacle course.
We're going to go sue a seal.
All right.
I can't. That video is
every time I see it,
I know.
Well, there will be plenty of mud because Janice Dean's outside, and Janice, it's a little rainy.
It is a little rainy. I'm borrowing an umbrella. Where are you from, my friend?
France.
You're from, tu parles français?
Oui.
Well, merci beaucoup for watching Fox and Friends. Let's take a look at the maps, and I'll show you where the rain is. We had the potential for severe storms last night across the southeast, and the potential again later on today for parts of the mid-Atlantic and the northeast. It is raining out here, but our SEALs at this event will be running without umbrellas. They are so brave. 61 here in New York City, 62 in Cleveland, 92 today in Dallas, and 87 in Albuquerque. A quick look at your Memorial Day forecast. Looks like it's going to be another rainy one for the East Coast, but we will certainly keep you up to date. Merci beaucoup. You want to say hi to anybody at home in France?
Hello, America.
Yeah, nicely done. All right, back inside.
All right. Au revoir. Au revoir.
Guten Tag. Sponsorships from next month's Puerto Rican Day Parade here in Manhattan. This after organizers decided to honor Oscar Lopez Rivera. Now, Rivera spent the last 35 years in prison. His sentence commuted by President Obama in the last days in office. He was recently set free. Rivera was a member of the FALN terrorist group fighting for his native Puerto Rico to be freed from American control, wanting the territory, that island, to be a communist island. FALN bombed more than 100 businesses and government offices in the 1970s and the 1980s here in the United States, including the bombing of Francis Tavern in Lower Manhattan in the financial district. That was an attack that killed 4 people and injured dozens more, many of whom were just having dinner that day or walking on the sidewalk. Rivera was convicted of helping to organize the bombs that were used in more than 100 attacks by this group. Last night, Tucker Carlson argued over this topic with a New York City councilman who supports the decision to put Rivera at the front of this year's Puerto Rican Day Parade. You obviously don't follow this in any detail. You're glomming onto the guy because he's a fashionable communist, but he's also a terrorist.
Again, Nelson Mandela was viewed as a terrorist till 2008.
But this is, are you really comparing him to Nelson Mandela? It was somewhat of a painful back and forth. Councilman Williams says Rivera is not a terrorist. He calls him a freedom fighter. Tucker reminded Williams that Puerto Ricans are free to vote to secede from the United States. It doesn't have to come down to terrorism to get away from this country if they so desire to. The NYPD commissioner is not going to be marching in the parade here in about 2 weeks, but our mayor will be. So there you go. We'll send it back to you guys in the studio.
Shocker that the mayor's going to side with him. Really, he fits that description. Thanks, Rob. Meanwhile, she's the newest member of the Fox and Friends team, and she's going to put herself through a test. The Bone Frog Challenge this morning. Jillian Mealy teams up with Dan Rooney and some prestigious sailors as they celebrate Fleet Week here in New York City.
But first, let's check in with Shannon Bream for a preview of what happens on the channel starting in 11 minutes.
I remember when you guys made me do that.
Yes, indeed, you did. You were a good sport.
Cue up the video. All right, guys, it's a big day, as you know, for the president as he heads to NATO to press for more action on terrorism in the wake of the Manchester attack. What we're learning now about the bomber, his family, and their alleged ties to ISIS. Plus, that CBO score is out on health care. GOP leaders calling it a win.
Who has gotten the short straw. That's right. Competing against special people.
She'll be squaring off against Dan Rooney, the founder of Folds of Honor. And joining us right here, we've got Brian Carney, Navy SEAL and owner and CEO of Bone Frog Challenge. What is the Bone Frog Challenge?
Bone Frog is the world's only Navy SEAL obstacle course race. I've been doing it for 5 years now. We have courses all around the country. Next one's in New Jersey, June 17th. You can sign up at bonefrogchallenge.com.
Well, if it's a Navy SEAL obstacle course, it's got to be impossible for a normal person to do.
No, we make it toned down for all fitness levels.
But it's raining and it's slipped. The bars are slippery. Oh my gosh! You're going to do great. Okay.
Okay, so it's going to be Jillian versus Dan.
And Jared's going to help me.
You got some help. All right, so let's get out of the way.
Okay.
Run over here.
I'm going to come over here,
right,
Jillian. I'm going to be pulling for you.
Brian, back up so that they can get through their
just go?
Oh, yeah. All right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, and you're off.
All right, this is the muddy part.
This is awesome.
It's raining, so it's a little extra muddy today.
There'll be a 7-foot wall helping each other over if needed.
It's easily 6'7".
Wow, Dan making it over the wall. Jared's going to help Jillian get over the wall.
Right after that, they're going to be going up to our obstacle stronghold, which is our rope climb into curved monkey bars.
Yeah, it's super. You know what, Brian? It's super slippery right now with the rain on that wall. That's tough.
It adds an added effect.
Very nice. How many focus? No matter what, you're going over things and under things.
Exactly. It's test all fitness levels. It's functional fitness, walls, carbonates. It's all very military-style obstacle course.
Fantastic. How many of these events do you host across the United States each year?
We're doing 10 right now across the nation and growing to about 20.
And if anybody would like, they're watching right now and they're thinking, that looks like fun, I'd like to do it. You have a website?
Yeah, bonefrogchallenge.com.
Is there a chance Jillian will survive?
She's looking good right now.
There's always a chance, right?
It's about halfway
She's doing
through.
great.
Yeah, this is only a very small portion of the course. We have over 40 obstacles on the real course. 3 miles, 8 miles, and 11 mile different distances.
Or different levels of people at different stages in their lives.
Exactly.
And this is about teamwork too, right?
Absolutely.
Jillian's getting some help.
It's 100% about teamwork. So if you are having trouble in an obstacle, your people that you're running with help you over it. So it's all very doable stuff.
Now, if she gets through this, will you put her on a mission, put her on a Black Hawk, and just have her go get a terrorist?
We'll have to bring her to the range first, but after maybe 20 minutes, I think we'll be all right.
She needs a gun and a monkey bars.
Dan Rooney is doing it absolutely right. It is a tie into the final event. And Dan is getting to the top of what looks like a metal pyramid. And let's see what happens. Jillian, he is so close. He's just a little ahead of you. Dan Rooney, the founder of Folds of Honor, is 3 feet away. Oh, it looks like there we go.
What about Jillian's decision to go face forward?
It's 50-50. I would leave it the other way. That's fine.
You did it.
So, Jillian,
There you go. Congratulations.
Jillian, there you go.
How was it, Jillian? Oh my God, I'm out of breath. That's really hard. It's so slippery.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Jared.
During that run, Jared, the Giants drafted you.
How you feeling, Dan? You okay?
We are awesome.